Instructor Darren. This is a video on cleaning up a process, poetry in a time of questioning. What we're going to be doing through this lecture is touching more upon the revisionary process of poetry, and I want to introduce you to some pieces of poetry that I find, incredibly interesting. I think that they offer us a look at how to um, deal with issues surrounding a pandemic or dealing with issues surrounding a time of uncertainty, and I want to present these poems as a way of giving us a lens into that. Um, as far as our agenda today, I want to begin by talking about some of the updates that we will have for our class and some changes that we're going to be making with the course and sort of explaining um, how the course is going to look like um, beyond this moment or after this moment. I know that this has sort of been a very difficult time to adjust, right? It's been sort of weird seeing everything go online, but um, yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that. The online writing exercises on Learn, which is something I want you guys to complete, that will be due Tuesday at midnight, along with the writing questionnaire too. That'll also be due on midnight. And these are going to look very similar to the ones that are completed in class. So I want you to take 10-15 minutes on each, so 30 minutes of your time to be able to complete both of those. I want to talk about the changes with the feedback for the duration of the semester. You might have noticed this for your writing exercise 6. I will be giving you video feedback for each of the assignments instead of in place of having just text-based. I feel like this is better because we are limiting our face-to-face conversation or face-to-face time. I feel like having the video feedback is necessary to make sort of a lot of changes uh, and reintroduces the dynamic that we had previously established in the classroom. We'll go over some drafting ideas that I want you to consider, and then we'll end the class with having poetics of questioning, that is, going over some of the poems that, uh, that I want to introduce to you guys. So if you go ahead and look at your Learn page, you'll see that the Learn is organized differently. So we begin with week 9, and it stretches out for the rest of the semester. I don't know what this page is. My Media. They just added that here. Huh. Weird. Okay. That is nothing we have to worry about. I guess they had an update to Learn. But if you click on week 9, we have these two folders, Tuesday, Thursday. Thursdays hasn't been uploaded yet, but Tuesdays will be on here. So these are the two writing exercises. There should be a link right here. And I think there should be a link to the discussion board um, for Thursday's class, which I will include. So be on the lookout for that. If you haven't seen the previous presentation material, so that is the coronavirus update switching to online classes, please take a look at that. I talked about the possibility of making this a synchronous class where everyone will meet up on a Friday through a Zoom meeting. But I decided against it just because availability for that would be very difficult. Um, we all don't have like a very stable internet connection right now. All of us aren't in New Mexico either. You know, some of us are outside of the country where it's very difficult to get internet connections. So, I mean, right now I'm in Tucson, right? So I'm not even in New Mexico. So I just feel like it's better that Tuesday and Thursday I will have a video explaining the concepts like I'm doing right now. Tuesday we'll have daily exercises, and then Thursday you'll have your readings, your daily exercises, and then you'll have a discussion board due. So please take a look at that. Um, if you go right here, these discussion boards will be on every Thursday. So every Thursday one will be due. And take a look at the course schedule because the course schedule is going to be changing a lot and frequently. So if you take a look right now, what I want you to have done by Thursday, let's see. What I want you to have done by Thursday, I want you to read Depending on the Wind by James Galvin and Love Poem So Tall It Ends in a Heaven by James Ringelbeld. And you'll find both of those links here on the course schedule. I'll have them uploaded on our poetry reading, the course readings. I'll have that included there. just so you know, we have something there. So daily exercise due by midnight, and then a final poem project is due on Learn by Friday at 9 p.m. Um, I will also have the discussion board questions due. So please take a look at that. Have those completed. Um, for today, I will have all of your grades in. Grades are going to be turned in, and then I will give feedback for your for the people that did have their packet on the discussion board. If you haven't put it on there, that's fine. Just know that I won't be able to get it back to you. Um, so yeah, as far as that goes, that's what our class is going to look like for the rest of the semester, right? We're going to have video lectures and then a lot of discussion board use. So, please, if you have any questions or concerns, um, email me, shoot me an email. I'll also leave my phone number. I'll email you that with that information in class. So if you guys need to call me to sort of figure out the situation, feel free to do so. I know this is sort of a very different situation that we've entered, and I just want to make sure that we're doing okay and that the class is facilitated in a way where we're still, doing a lot of learning and we're progressing together. Okay, so besides our class, the Learn organization, as I said, that's going to be different, and the online is going to be mostly done. Um, you know, through video lectures, so we don't have to worry about meeting online as a class. If you do need to meet with me for any reason to make conferences, um, there is a Zoom meetings that we could set up. Fridays I can have an optional class. I saw that there was interest in that, so you don't necessarily have to attend that class at all. But I will have um, a meeting early in the morning that we could just talk. We could have your other classmates talk, so that's a possibility too. Let me include that in here too. Optional online class on Fridays. And then if you guys could email me and see which times work out the best for you. I was thinking something like 9 a.m. To like 10:15 a.m. Like we could have something like that, just an online class where you can meet with your classmates and stuff and talk about the work that you're putting out there. Um, so yeah, if you want to do that, that's completely fine. I'm totally available for that. And if you want to change times around for that optional online class, please let me know so we can make that work. As far as the updates to our syllabus, you could go check that out. Really, all it says is like, hey, have a computer, come to class, do your work. Come to class, I mean participate, complete all your work, stuff like that. So if you have any questions about that, look at the syllabus. It has been updated. And then again, if you have any questions about how our class will be conducted, please email me or text me, call me, so we could talk about, if you have any questions in resolving some issues that you might have. I'll send you all that information today as well. So this is the online writing exercise. I have it posted on Learn. You could find that here. If you go to week 9, you go ahead and click, you go ahead and click Tuesday, and you should find the writing questionnaire as well as the online writing exercise. So please be aware to do that. Really, I just want to see how you guys are doing. I know that this has been a stressful time. I know that some people are handling the self isolation a lot better than others. And if there's anything that I could do as an instructor, please reach out to me. If there's any resources, if you feel like, hey, this has really sort of disrupted my learning, I can include and provide more resources for you to be able to um, better develop your understanding of creative writing, and specific to poetry is really what I could help with. Um, and Actually, the class isn't going to be online for 2 weeks. Um, it's going to stretch out for the rest of the semester. I made this PowerPoint a little while back, so let me just correct this here. Yeah, we're going to go online for the rest of the semester. Um, yeah, unfortunately, that's sort of where we're at right now. Okay, changes for feedback. Again, I mentioned that I'm going to be doing online feedback for the next 2 weeks, and these are going to include videos. Videos will have a private link posted onto YouTube, so you don't have to worry about your classmates looking at it or anything like that. These are all private links, and then I want you to check the calendar regularly to see if there are any changes. Okay. It's important to see just because I'm still getting a sense of like how to manage online classes. I've never done this before. So please check that calendar to see what changes are made, if any are made. Um, Moving on from that, I want to talk about some drafting ideas. As I was grading your pieces, I noticed sort of a common thing. Italics were utilized a lot to look towards the past. And if a poem is entirely in the past tense, you don't need to utilize the italics, right? Your language should be able to convey that. So just be aware of that, right? Like heavy use of italics. Um, they should only come in from moment to moment. It should be maybe a stanza, um, or maybe a word. Anything more than that, it reads a little bit differently. Like the aesthetic is isn't doing that work, right? So um, be aware of that. Everything takes place in the past tense, or if it's a speaker looking back on something, you don't necessarily need italics to do that, right? We already have an understanding of that. Um, if you're not finishing a line on a hard emotional sentiment, I want you to make sure that your stanza is strong. Have the poem open up strong. It's like key to give readers incentive to continue engaging with the piece. Um, for me, as part of like being in the Blue Mace Review, that publication for UNM, I often feel like if the first stanza isn't doing work, I'm really not invested for the rest of it. I know it's a bad way of looking at poetry, but when you have so many submissions, I read like 500 poems just this semester. It's difficult to go through so many and not have like that first stanza really try to move you, right? So the last thing I have here is consider being shocking. By shocking, I don't mean like being offensive or being super edgy. Um, I really want you to consider like how to make really good lines that are emotionally impactful. So this poem that I have here, it's Golden State by Frank Bedard. If you take a look at this first stanza, he reads, "To see my father lying in pink velvet, a rosary twined around his hands, rouge, lipstick, his skin marble." Opening up with the death of his father in such a descriptive like terminology and detail, it's incredibly captivating, right? And if you take a look, the first lines, right, "to see my father lying in pink velvet, a rosary," these end breaks on their own don't really do much, right? But it's the stanza as a whole that works together that makes this really captivating image of his father lying in a casket. So that's what I mean by being shocking, and he isn't being offensive in any way, right? He's merely describing the death of his father, but the image itself, it's like it does a sense to intertwine our emotions and confuse us and befuddle us and make us really excited to read the next part of it. So um, that's what I mean by consider being shocking. I read through some of the work and I feel like we could fix that, we could revise that, and really push that sort of boundary. But as you guys are doing, as I'm reading all these poems, I really see a constant progression. So these are just some things that I really want to consider um, improving upon or changing. But other than that, everyone here in this class is doing incredible work, and their poems are always communicating something that is intensely emotional. So please take into consideration all of these ideas. Um, I know this class is a little bit short. Again, there's so much going on right now. I really apologize for that. But I just want to share with you guys some poems because I know that things are a little bit difficult right now. And each of these poems offers something different. And I think that each of them are helpful in not only understanding what is going on right now, but also giving us a lens of how to like experiment with poetry and create our own aesthetics. If you look at Langston Hughes' Hope, it's a very short poem, right? Hope by Langston Hughes. Sometimes when I'm lonely, don't know why, keep thinking I won't be lonely by and by. It's a short poem. It's a little cheesy, right, with the rhyme and stuff, but it uses the abstraction really well, and that's something that I want you guys to consider doing. I've noticed that um, the type of poetry that we're creating in this class is a lot more lyrical versus being narrative heavy, and that's completely fine. I think that lyric poetry has its own moment and place, and it executes things extremely well. Um, Myself as a poet, I am mixed. I always try to weave lyric and narrative together. I'm not extremely narrative driven poet, but I'm not extremely lyrical or lyric driven poet. I try to mix up both, but I think that this poem, it really showcases that abstraction really well, right? There really is no image here. The loneliness is what we're supposed to go off of, and what really creates that emotional sentiment. So I want you to consider how you could have these moments within your own poems. This is Priscilla Baker's Next to Nothing. Um, this is a really neat poem. It just came out in 2020, the March 2020 edition of Poetry. Really cool poem, Next to Nothing. When it was understood it could not happen, faster all at once, the world became my enclosed space, my trial zone. Small scrimps like the backyard, metal rakes scraping concrete rather than one vertical slit, or a christening by walking farther and farther out. The water, trustworthy, the edge, intimacy, the skill to connect into one dull flow, able to go soundlessly, scrupulously, with no help, and paramount, no signal, developing depth, stamina, perfecting no expression until I don't need a note. I do not need a note. Um, Again, this is a poem that deals a lot with abstraction. It's very lyrical, like some of the stuff that's being submitted in our class. What I want you to take note of with this piece is the use of the line breaks. So she breaks in interesting ways. Became my enclosed space, my trial break zone. Right. So it's a continuation off from the last stanza. It creates really nice rhythms. So when you're doing something that's abstract like this, I don't necessarily need to understand what's going on, right? It took me a couple of readings to kind of get what this poem was about. And with very lyrical poems, like you don't need that understanding right away, right? But you do need those rhythms, those line breaks to you know continue being interesting and continue like having that sort of musicality and that sonic quality that's really intriguing. Um, the last poem that I want to talk to you guys about is W.H. Auden, September 1st, 1939. This piece is probably the most one of the most important poems in the last 100 years. Um, it discusses the beginning of World War II. This is really a great poem that was done in a how do I put it? It was very controversial. I'm gonna go ahead and read it, and then I think for the discussion board on Thursday we'll bring back this poem, and I wanna have us all talk about it and what we think our considerations about it. But September 1st, 1939. I sit in one of the dives on 52nd Street, uncertain and afraid as the clever hopes expire of a low, dishonest decade. Waves of anger and fear circulate over the bright and darkened lands of the earth, obsessing our private lives. The unmentionable odor of death offends the September night. Accurate scholarship can unearth the whole offense, from Luther until now, that has driven a culture mad. Find what occurred at Linz, what huge imago made a psychopathic god. I and the public know what all those schoolchildren learn. Those to whom evil is done do evil in return. Exiled Thucydides, I don't know how to pronounce that, knew all that his speech could say about democracy and what dictators do. The elderly rubbish they talked to an apathetic grave, analyzed all in his book. The enlightenment driven away, the habit forming pain, mismanagement and grief. We must suffer them all again. Into this neutral air where blind skyscrapers use their full height to proclaim the strength of collective man. Each language pours its vain, competitive excuse. But who can live for long in a euphoric dream? Out of the mirror they stare, imperialism's face and the international wrong. Faces along the bar cling to their average day. The lights must never go out. The music must always play. All the conventions conspire to make this fort assume the furniture of home. Lest we should see where we are, lost in a hunted wood, children afraid of the night, who have never been happy or good. The windiest militant trash, important persons shout, is not so crude as our wish. What mad Nijinsky wrote about Diaghilev is true of the normal heart. For the arrow bred in the bone of each woman and each man craves what it cannot have, not universal love, but to be loved alone. From the conservative dark into the ethical life, the dense commuters come, repeating their morning vow. I will be true to the wife, I'll concentrate more on my work, and helpless governors wake to resume their compulsory game. Who could release them now? Who could reach the deaf? Who could speak for the dumb? All I have is a voice to undo the folded lie, the romantic lie in the brain of the sensual man in the street, and the lie of authority whose buildings grope the sky. There is no such thing as the state, and no one exists alone. Hunger allows no choice to the citizen or the police. We must love one another or die. Defenseless under the night, our world is in stupor lies, yet dotted everywhere. Ironic points of light flash out wherever the just exchange their messages. May I, composed like them of eros and of dust, beleaguered by the same negation and despair, show an affirming flame. Um, what I like about this piece is basically how, in times of like great despair, people are sort of like trying to um, like find something to distract themselves, right? And it's interesting in the way that like this type of poetry to me is exceptional because it does the same thing that film does, right? Where we're at the bar, right? And then there's this like liminal space where he's just thinking about what's going on with the war. And then he brings out this like Gratian, I think it's Gratian, um, figure, right? So this is the Athenian historian in general. Um, and then he also brings in Nijinsky. Nijinsky was a very famous ballet dancer that I think he ended up getting syphilis and he went crazy. But he's a very interesting case. A lot of poets have wrote about him, so you could check that out. Um, I think that this poem is really interesting in the way that like it does that, right? It zooms us out of the bar, goes to these different sort of historical references and events, and then has like critiques of society in between. So what I think is just an interesting idea that I've been trying to incorporate with my own poetry for a long time. Um, you know what? I haven't shown you guys one of my poems, and um, I think I should. I think I should. I think this is a good time to do that. Um, so this is one of my pieces that I had published in this little journal called Drunk Monkeys. Um, I tried to do something similar. I'll read it to you. It was sometime after the second or third herniated disc, the same constricted light in Rafa's eyes. I knew his shame and had no words for it. Still, when we spoke, his limpid voice returned me to the summer evening spent in Salado Lake, as we searched for piedras under the balm of moonlight, tightly wound fists ready to lurch stones across the water. The week before Rafa died, he joked, will opiates ever be normal again? I didn't say anything, and maybe he didn't want me to. Instead, I thought about how the stones bounced on a watery reflection of the moon, the ripples leaving a broken costera of stars, a view so minuscule and momentary it's easy to say goodbye to. So what I try to do in this poem, something very similar as we see in September 1st. I have um, someone looking back at this memory. So when they look back, this is Salado Lake. So there's different fragments of memory, and it's something I want you to try to incorporate within your own poetry, right? Whether it's fragmenting memory or having a different reference to something, and then having that reference included in your poem, I think it works exceptionally well. Um, yeah. But that's it for today. What I want you to do for the after poem, I want you to adopt a line from a poet. Find a poetry on Poetry Foundation, or maybe you have a line from another student in class that you find really interesting, and I want you to begin with their line. Remember to always source your material and write the line in italics, right? When you write a line in italics and you put after this poet, um, it makes it a lot. How do I put it? It's a way of sourcing it, right? So if you put like after Frank Biddart, right, and you start off with your first line from them, you're showing them like, hey, this is like my sampling, like they would do in music. Um, I was thinking about having a discussion board based on this, but no, it's okay. I'll just have you guys just do your uh, do it just like a journal entry and stuff. Um, Sorry if I sound a little down today, guys. It's kind of sucky that we have to move to online. I really miss our class, but anyway, I hope you all have a good day, and I hope that everyone's safe out there, and you guys, keep on staying safe. Bye bye.